Welcome back to another episode of Fan Talk. My name is Kay Brench here back in the studio. This Fan Talk podcast is found in the usual places, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. We're back with another episode to talk about some great things. This episode, I'm going to do something that I haven't done before. I'm going to talk a little hockey. Yeah, hockey doesn't quite make it onto this Fan Talk podcast. Mostly because if you're new here or if you've forgotten Fan Talk, this is a podcast by me. And I sit down and this is just through my eyes as a fan, what I see on the screen and what I think. And it's my unique, opinion and view. And so I don't really watch hockey until it gets to the postseason, Stanley Cup playoffs. And then we're getting there. It's April now, so we're going to be talking a little Stanley Cup, little NHL postseason, as well as NBA postseason. They both kind of happen around the same time. And so we'll jump into that here in a moment. I do want to mention, though, future of the podcast. Obviously, I'm using this really nice studio here on campus, and school's only a couple weeks left. So once that happens, I'll probably move to being an online, probably just do all my podcasts online. But we'll see how that goes. I'm also looking on investing into a video camera, so we might be able to kind of keep the same setup moving forward, but I'll keep you guys updated on what will happen in the weeks to come. But for now, we're in the studio. We got a couple more weeks. Let's enjoy it. It will be super fun, and summer's on its way. It may not look like it outside. Well, it depends on where you're listening from. We got a snowstorm today, but it's supposed to clear up by the weekend. But you're not here for a weather report. You're here for me talking about sports, or here just because the YouTube metrics have thrown you into my channel. Hopefully. I don't know. I don't know if I'm that big yet. But I want to start with some hockey. So let's start hockey here. Postseason hockey's here. My favorite team is a Canadian team. Since there's no team here where I'm from, I just kind of adopted the Vancouver Canucks as my favorite team. They're just kind of mid-tier, mid-pack. They didn't make the postseason this year or the year before. Hopefully they'll bounce back next year. Love watching hockey when it comes to the postseason. I don't know. I just feel like it takes a back seat with some of the other sports. Je ne joue pas au hockey. It means I do not play hockey, but I watch hockey. So, and when I watch hockey, it's postseason, as I mentioned before. But enough rambling. Let's just kind of look at the postseason picture. I think it would be very smart to mention that the Boston Bruins have broken the single-season record for most wins by a team. They're currently at 64, and the record before, I believe, was 62. They've smashed that record. They're on a 7-game win streak. I think they're the favorites to win the Stanley Cup. Without even considering any of the other teams, they're just so much better. 64 wins, only 12 losses, and 5 overtime losses to accumulate 133 points. That's incredible. That is, that's like 50 more points than, some of these teams that just barely missed the playoffs. That's crazy. So Boston Bruins, they're my favorites to go all the way and to win it all from the East for sure. In the West, I think the West is a little weaker compared to the East this year. The Vegas Golden Knights back in. Seattle Kraken making the playoffs. They're, a new team. This is only their, I think, third year in the league. Teams like the Dallas Stars are back in it. The Kings are back in it. And then, of course, the Avalanche and the Oilers are there as well. But in the next couple days here, they'll start with the playoffs. And, I'll kind of watch a game here and there. Whenever there's not an NBA game on. My focus will kind of be on the NBA playoffs, and we'll kind of get to that here in a second. But if you are a hockey fan, playoffs times are starting, and it'll be fun to see who brings home the Stanley Cup. I'm putting my money on the Boston Bruins. I'm just playing it safe. It would be sad if they didn't finish this historic season with a title. Let's move away from hockey. I only have so much to say about things that I know very little about, and I don't want to sit here and pretend to be an expert or act like I know. I'm just trying to be real and raw with you and say that I didn't really watch hockey at all this year, and I only watch it for the postseason. Similar to baseball. I mean, I did make a commitment to watch more baseball this year, and I definitely am more into baseball than I am to hockey. But the postseason is when my interest is really peaked. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that as we move forward. Probably won't talk about it too much here on the podcast. This podcast, my big things are, football, basketball, and baseball. So we'll mostly talk about that, and then college football, college basketball as well. But let's talk about the NBA playoffs. Before we get to the playoffs, we got to get to this play-in. If you're unfamiliar with this play-in format, it was implemented in the bubble. And the bubble was what they did during COVID in 2020 down in Orlando. They essentially quarantined all the teams. They put them in this bubble per se. They couldn't leave. No one could come in. It was very strict. It was down there at Orlando Studios, Walt Disney Studios down there. And they implemented this play-in game where they had the 8 and 9 seed play to see who would get the 8 seed. And it was just, something they were trying, something they were thinking of implementing for a couple years now. And they liked it enough that the last 3 years they've actually used the modern format, which is they would have 7 through 10 play for the 7 and 8 spots. And I kind of mentioned this last week a little bit and talked about it. And some of those games have happened. And I'd like to talk about kind of my thoughts. I was able to sit down and watch some of the games, but I was at a wedding, so I didn't quite get to everything. But as it stands right now, tomorrow night, Friday, will be the determining game for who gets the 8 seed. The 7 seeds have already gotten in. The Atlanta Hawks beat the Miami Heat, so the Hawks automatically got the 7 seed. The Lakers beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. They automatically get the 7 seed in the West. And so the Timberwolves and the Heat will now play the winner of the 9 and 10 game in their respective conference. Last night, Zach LaVine absolutely went off, 39 points for the Chicago Bulls. They erased a 19-point deficit, and they shocked the Raptors. I don't know if shock's the right word. I mean, I don't know. If you're up by 19, I'd be pretty shocked if someone came back and beat me. Beat the Raptors in Toronto, so the Raptors are going home, and the Bulls will now play the Heat for the 8 seed. Only one team can go through. That's the thing with this play-in tournament. You feel like you've made it, but you haven't. You still have to win 2 games, especially if you're the 9 or 10 seed. If you're the 7 and 8 seed, you just got to win 1 game. And over in the West, Timberwolves will be playing the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder took down the Pelicans last night. Another disappointing season for the Pelicans. Zion's hurt. They can't make the postseason. They have good players. They have McCollum. They have Valanciunas. They have Brandon Ingram. They just can't put it together. And I think this is a talk for another day, but I think Zion needs to play. I think, obviously injuries set you back, but you got to find a way to play, man. New Orleans really did put everything they had. They went all in on you, and you're the face of the franchise, and you don't even play. So what's up with that? But we can talk about that another day. Oklahoma City will be playing for a spot in the playoffs. They haven't been back to the playoffs since when Chris Paul was there, and that was during the COVID bubble. They had Chris Paul there in Oklahoma City. You guys remember that one season? That was kind of weird. Chris Paul there. But they haven't been back. So their first time back in 3 years. They're currently doing a rebuild. Pretty good. They got a lot of young players. Youngest team in the NBA on average. I think it's about 22 or 23, which is, around my age. Kind of wild there. But they play Friday night. So Friday night, tomorrow night, check this out. You got Heat and Bulls playing 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Winner gets the 8 seed, and they will face Milwaukee, which is, kind of a tough task, but at least you're in, right? As long as you're in, you have a chance. And then Oklahoma City will be playing Minnesota. Winner gets Denver. That game is at 7:30 p.m. on Friday night as well. It should be fun to see what happens. I always say that it should be fun, and it usually is. Fun is what you make it, and you can make it real fun, so it should be good there. All right, so what I'm going to do now is on the NBA app, you can actually pick the playoffs. You pick who wins. It's kind of like March Madness where you pick the winner, but they do this little thing on here. So I have this little screen recording here. Make your picks. Think you got the winning bracket? Enter the official bracket of the NBA playoffs now. I think I have a winning bracket. I didn't do well in March Madness, as you guys know, but I think I got this one. I think it's a little easier to predict the NBA playoffs. just because teams are more solidified. There's not as many upsets. I mean, there always is, but it's not as wild as March Madness. They don't call it NBA Madness. They call it March Madness, right? So as you can see here, Western Conference, Denver will play the winner of OKC and Minnesota. I think, obviously, OKC, Minnesota, they're both good teams, but I think regardless, I think Denver will take this one, regardless of who they play. Denver, this is pretty much their year. They got the 1 seed in the West. This is their year to go to the NBA Finals. There's not really too many strong teams in the West, in my opinion. It'd be fun to see if Kevin Durant can stay healthy during the playoffs. Phoenix might be able to make a push. Golden State's always surprising, but we'll see. I'm going to pick Denver. Give me the Nuggets. And then it asks, how many will they win it in? And I'll be honest with you, I think they win it in 6. I think Minnesota, Oklahoma City, I think they could win 2 games. Maybe 2 of their games at home. Phoenix and the Clippers. I like Phoenix in this one. And that's because, I mean, they got Chris Paul. They got these. They're there. They got the players. This maybe is their year, too. Other than that 2021 year when, Giannis just trumped them. But they were right there. So I'm going to do Phoenix. I think this one goes in 7. I think the Clippers missing Paul George, but they'll still push the Suns to the edge. Kawhi Leonard, he's a baller. They got some good players there in LA. Kings and Warriors, man, love me some Sacramento Kings. Haven't been to the playoffs since 2006. I think all of my viewers were probably born before 2006, but if there are any who weren't, Kings, they're a team, and they're in the playoffs. You've never seen this before. I do like them as a 3 seed, but I do think the Warriors get them. I think the Warriors, obviously a more veteran team. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, they've been here. They know what they're doing. Kings, this is their first time. None of these guys on this team have really been in postseason basketball. And so as much as I'd love to see the Kings, I'm rooting for the Kings. I think Golden State takes them out. And I think it does go to 7 games. I think it is competitive, but I think Golden State handles them. Memphis and the Lakers. Now, this is just my personal opinion. This is my take. But I am just so frustrated and annoyed with all these people at ESPN and NBA TV and TNT who are talking like the Lakers are going to win the championship this year. And I do understand they've put a lot of pieces together. They've had the best record since the trade deadline. They got some core players. Anthony Davis, LeBron James are healthy. D'Angelo Russell was added to the team. And they're playing good. I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to argue that they're not playing good. They are. And, I think they were favored to beat the Timberwolves and to get into the playoffs. And I think they deserve to be in the playoffs because they are a good team. But I don't think that they're going to have a run to the title. I don't think anybody who says that really truly believes that. I think they kind of, say what people want to hear, and that's that the Lakers are going to win. Everybody's just obsessed with the Lakers. So I actually think Memphis here in the 2 seed. I think Ja Morant's, not going to buy this baloney. I think he knocks out the Lakers in 6, and Memphis goes on to have a rematch against Golden State from the conference finals last year. Moving on to the Eastern Conference, I like Milwaukee against anybody who they play here in this first round, rather Chicago or Miami. Again, those teams are just playing to get in, like at this point. They're just, doing rock, paper, scissors. Who will Giannis smack this year? So I'm going to say Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee wins in 5 over either team, and they have a good shot to go forward. Knicks and Cavaliers. Now, this one's trickier because my personal opinion and what I've seen here in the Eastern Conference, I think Milwaukee, Boston, or Philly have a really good shot at winning. My top pick is Milwaukee. My second is Philly, and then Boston. I think those 3 teams in the Eastern Conference are up here, and I think the rest are kind of down here. Like, I don't think Cleveland or New York can really make a splash, mostly because they're up against Milwaukee. And Brooklyn against Philly. Love me some Brooklyn. Just totally changed everything and made the playoffs without Kyrie, Harden, or Durant. You love to see it. But I think Philly there. And the Hawks are just happy to be here. Boston will take care of them easy. But yeah, so like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they're just kind of there. I think this is the big boys game, playing with the big boys in Milwaukee and Philly and Boston. But for the sake of this one, Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland, he's facing the Knicks, and everyone thought the Knicks were going to get him. I really like Cleveland in this one. I think Cleveland will do good. I think it will be good for Donovan Mitchell to get some, playoff wins. He's obviously made it out of the first round a couple times with the Jazz, but never really made it to the conference finals. And the problem is they're not going to do that because they're facing the Bucks. So I don't know. I'm pumping up Cleveland right now, but I'm going to throw a curveball and actually say the Knicks. The New York Knicks get Cleveland. I'm going to say a 7-game series, and the Knicks move on. Philly and Brooklyn. I'm going to take Philly. I really like Philly. I think they're a good chance to win it all. I'm going to say Philly in 5 over the Brooklyn Nets. Boston and Atlanta. I'm going to say Boston, and I'm going to say they win in 5 as well. I think the Hawks get 1 game. So moving on here, now we're looking here at the semifinals. You got Denver and Phoenix, Golden State and Memphis. This will be a real interesting one. Obviously, as I mentioned, Denver's year, they're finally healthy. I just don't think they're as strong as any team that's coming out of the East. I'm just going to say that. But for the sake of this, let's play around with this. Denver and Phoenix. I like Phoenix. I think Phoenix has done some good things in the playoffs. And I think they beat Denver. I think they take Denver to 7 games and they get them and move on to the conference finals. Memphis against Golden State. Ooh, Memphis, they are missing Steven Adams. I think Golden State makes another run. I don't want to root for Golden State. I'm not picking favorites here either. I just want to put that out there. I don't know why it matters that you guys know that I'm not a fan of Golden State, but it just does. But I do think Golden State wins this one. I'm going to do it in 6 games, and they'll face Phoenix in the conference finals of the West. Eastern Conference, I do like Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee wins in 5 pretty easily over the Knicks. And then I'm going to say Philadelphia. Philadelphia over Boston. I think Boston is a slightly worse team this year than they were last year. I think last year they should have won it. They were so good, and then they just didn't win. That's something that happens. So I'm going to say Philadelphia in 6 to face Milwaukee in the conference finals. So what I got here, I got Golden State, Phoenix. I got Milwaukee and Philadelphia. I think if Kevin Durant is going to make a statement, I think he's going to do it now. But also, there's this part of me that's just saying that the Phoenix will lose somewhere along the way, and maybe I'll have to go back and do multiple brackets, just like in March Madness, because you never know what's going to happen. But for the sake of this one, I'm going to be a KD optimist and say him, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, all those boys. I think they go, and Phoenix takes it to 7 games, a long postseason for Phoenix, a couple 7-game series, but they get past Golden State and go back to the NBA Finals. Now, we could have some fun here, and I could throw Milwaukee back in there and say, ooh, here we go, Milwaukee and Phoenix, rematch of 2021. But I think this is the year that Philadelphia steps up. I'm going to say Philadelphia takes out Milwaukee in 6 games. Well, let me go back. I meant to say 7 games. And Phoenix, Philadelphia, Battle of the Peas, and I think Philadelphia wins this one. Philly will win it in probably 6 games, and there you go. What will the point margin be in game 1? I don't know, 6. All right, that was fun. And if you guys want to fill out your own bracket, I filled out a couple. I have Milwaukee winning in 1. I have the Nuggets winning in 1 just because they're a 1 seed at Boston. So you make a couple different brackets, you pick a couple different winners. But as you saw there, Philadelphia taking the crown, at least in this bracket. So go check it out on the NBA app or on NBA.com. I think you do need an account, but it's free. It's just like, signing up for any other account. And submit your picks and let me know down in the description who your NBA Finals champion will be. Again, play-in tournament is tomorrow night, Friday, and then games start Saturday. And then it will be from here on out until about first week, second week of June. So a lot of basketball here the next couple months. It'll be real fun to see. This Fan Talk podcast is found on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Thank you guys so much for listening or watching or at least sharing. Please go check out my Instagram page. KBrench Sports is my sports page. I'm trying to put a lot of content on there and kind of build that up. So please go give me a follow. I'd appreciate that. And thank you guys so much. Enjoy your weekend.